Do you remember the first in-person guest we had?
Today, we're going to tell you about the trip that they are on right now. Hi, it's Around the World with Joshua and Alyssa, and we are glad that you would join us today. And Alyssa is taking us back to Asia.
Yep, back to Korea. So today we'll look at a hike that I went on when I was there.
Deal.
Yep. So when I was there, we stayed in a hotel. Well, the teachers stayed in a hotel right next to this really beautiful park. And the reason they built the hotel there was because the water came from a natural spring from the mountain, and it had like all sorts of really good minerals and stuff in it. And so they built this hotel, and then they built a spa in the basement of it where they brought in the water and they would like warm it, and they had all these different pools, and they would add like lavender and like some dyes so the different pools were different colors, so then it could be very relaxing and very good for your health.
And the dye was good for your health too?
Yeah, it was just like a little bit so you didn't turn purple when you got in the water. But one of the days we were there, we decided to hike up to where the spring was, right next to our hotel. So this was the bridge to get across from where the hotel was to where the start of the trail was. And since it was like in March, it was kind of like wintry looking. Wasn't like super, super beautiful, but it was pretty in its own little way. So there's me and my friend Rachel as we're hiking along to see this spring. And I think it was really interesting to me because I hadn't seen some of these trees and stuff, because there were a lot of trees like I would see in North America, but we don't have them on Guam. So it was just like nice to see trees, not just coconut trees, because that's basically all we had on Guam. And there were lots and lots of steps. It was like cut into the rock, and that was a cool tunnel thing that the water had flowed through at one point. And even though it was winter, it was still flowing, which was pretty impressive. It didn't freeze over, but I think because it was always moving, because it was like always bubbling up new parts of it, it still was going like that. But you can kind of see like what it's leaving on the rocks. There's a lot of minerals in that water.
Wow. That's kind of pretty though.
Yeah. It was really pretty, and the way the light was shining on it was really nice, and the sun was helping keep us warm because we were so chilly because it was winter and we weren't ready for it. So there's the spring where all that water comes from, but they had it at the top, and then they had like little buckets and stuff so you could wash your feet. That was a really big deal. They thought you needed to wash your feet because that's where all of the like toxins from your body go. So when you got to the top, everybody was supposed to wash their feet. So they knew some people probably couldn't get down right to the river to do it, and so then they had the fountain thing, and then like little pitchers and stuff that you could scoop up the water and take off your socks and shoes and wash your feet. But the kids in our group went down to the river so they could actually get the full experience and wash their feet in the river. But super clear. It was really beautiful water. Chilly, but supposed to be really good for your health. And it was funny, like when we got back down, even the teachers from the school were like, do you feel so much better? Like, your health is much better now that you've washed your feet in this highly concentrated mineral water. Like, sure. But they're all about things that are good for your health. So if it was good for your health, you should go do it. We did one other quick, it was a really little hike. It wasn't super long. And the picture on the left, that's just like the little check-in counter to get your tickets. And I was like, wow, they made it all fancy. But it was for the entrance to the cave, which is on the right. I don't have any pictures inside the cave because caves are really dark. But it was a cave where the people from the village went to hide out during like a time of unrest, and they lived in this cave. And it's really long. We could only go to a certain part of it, but I think it goes at least 2 miles into the ground. So that's what made it a really great place for them to stay and hide out during this time of unrest. And they brought a bunch of food with them, and I can't even remember how many people, but it was a lot of people they packed in there. But it's a nice big cave, so it worked out really great. And it's right here by the water. So there were a lot of good things about it, but it was just kind of interesting to go visit a cave in another country. For a while, my family was really into going to caves. Like on family vacations, we kept finding places that had a cave so we could go to it, which was really fun. So yeah, that was my Korean hike and cave experience. Yeah.
Nice.
And do some more story today.
Okay.
Okay. We left off our story. Oops, I should have flipped back a page. Last time, Mustafa had made up his mind that he wanted to learn how to pray like that teacher had prayed. And his friend met up with him right before he got ready to go. And his friend was kind of like, well, don't you want me to come with? And we'll just kind of like make fun of the teacher and stuff. And Mustafa was like, well, I don't really think that's why I want to go this time. So he walked to the teacher's house down a long street, and he heard the echo from his footsteps, and it kind of made him nervous. Like, was somebody following him? Then he realized it was just him, but it was so quiet he could hear it. And he got to that big door, and he got ready to knock, and he thought, if I knock, will I find out how to pray like the teacher Layla prayed? Will I be able to talk to God just like that? Like he's right there with me, and that I'll know him? And then he got ready to knock again, and there was like a little voice inside. If you knock and you find out what this teacher is talking about, you're going to believe these Christian lies. And if you believe their lies, your family's going to disown you. They're not going to talk to you anymore. Your friends aren't going to want to talk to you. Your life is going to be completely different. It's going to be changed. Are you sure you want that? So as Mustafa was standing at the door, he felt like there was a battle going on inside of him. Did he really want to know? Or did he not want to change what his life had been so far? And so as he was trying to decide, he was looking around and thinking, and around the corner came Layla and her friend. And she had a basket of groceries. It looked like she had just gotten back from the market with her friend. And she recognized Mustafa. I remember you. She said, you were at our last meeting. Oh, when she said that, Mustafa remembered how the last meeting had ended, how he had been yelling at her and screaming, and how he'd run out and said that they were foreigners and dogs and how nobody should listen to them. And he was like, why did I come here? She probably hates me. She probably doesn't want to even talk to me. Well, he said, well, I was here to learn more about how you talk to your God, but you probably hate me, so I think I would probably just leave. And Layla shook her head. No, you can come in. We don't hate you. Of course, we would love to talk to you, so come on in. So they're very different people, Mustafa thought. Well, he got inside, and he sat down with Layla, and he told her that he had come back because he wanted to learn to talk to God just like she talks to God. You talk to God like he's your friend and like he's right there. And so I came back because I want to know more about this God. And so I got ready to knock on your door, but then I got really scared and I thought about what's going to happen if I do decide to listen to what the Bible has to say and what you've told us. Layla said, I think what you're saying reminds me of a verse. And she took a big black book off of the shelf. She didn't tell him it was a Bible, sorry. She took a big black book off of her shelf and she opened it up and she read these words. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. She said, this is a promise from God. To me? Mustafa said, but that's just like what I was looking for. I had a question and I wanted to look for the answer and I was about ready to knock on your door to hear the answer, but then I got scared. And Layla said, this is a promise. God gives us many promises, and this is one of his, that if you're looking for who he is and you seek him to find out who he is and you ask and you get to know, then you will really get to know who God is because you're really interested in who he is and you will learn more about him. And just then Layla's friend called to her from the kitchen, so she left Mustafa for a minute in the living room with the book. So Mustafa looked at those words. He really wanted to keep them. He wanted to keep reading those words over and over again. God had made a special promise to him. He looked at that book. He thought some more. He grabbed the page in the corner and he ripped it out of the book. He closed the book really fast just as Layla was coming around the corner, and he tucked that paper inside of his shirt. He said, thank you. I think I'm going to keep coming to your meetings and I won't disrupt this time. I promise by Allah that I will not cause any more problems for your meetings, but I'll be back. Goodbye. And he ran out the door. Layla looked at him very confused. She said, "Peace be with you," and he left. He ran to his favorite spot in the alley where he knew nobody would be disrupting him, so he could look at those words on the page. And he pulled them out of his shirt, and he began to look at those words. Ask, seek, knock. It was just like what he had done. Well, he realized there were words on the front and the back of this page. So he turned it over and he started looking at some other words. And he saw some other words that said, "Do not pray so men will see you," and "do not use vain repetitions." That meant like saying words over and over and over again. He thought, wow, that's what we do. We're always saying the words from the Quran and we're always repeating them over and over, not really even thinking about what we're saying. We just say them. And he read down a little farther and he saw some more verses. "Our Father," he gasped. This was from the Christian's Bible. He had just stolen a page from their Bible. Should he crumple it up and throw it away? But he really wanted to hear these words. He liked reading these words. They were so comforting to him. But he thought, I can't show them to anybody. I can't show them to my father. He'll be very angry. Can I show them to Rashid? No, he probably knows too much already. I'll get in trouble. So he decided he was just going to keep those words for himself. So he folded them up, he took them to his house, and he hid them under his mattress on his bed. That way he could take them out to look at them, but nobody else would find them. And so he continued to go to the classes at Layla's house and read those words when he was at home. And he went to the classes and he loved the singing and he loved being with the other children and he really liked hearing the stories from that big black book. But every time Layla took it down, he always got a little nervous. What if she turned to the pages where he had taken the words from? But she hadn't for a long time. Well, one day she said, "We're going to read some verses all about prayer." And she opened up the Bible and she got to a page and she kept looking back and forth and back and forth. And she said, "Well, it's not here." And she looked up at Mustafa and I think she realized right away what had happened to that missing page. So after class was over, Layla came over to Mustafa and she said very quietly, "Do you know what happened to that page?" Mustafa said, "Yes, I took it because I wanted to see those promises. I wanted to read them again and again." Layla said, "I think there's some more promises from this book that you would like to know about. And I think you've learned more and more about what this book has to say, and I think that you're really going to like these words." So she turned to John 14:6, and the verse she read to him was from Jesus. She told him, Jesus was talking. He said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." So how does that verse tell us we can get to God? Layla asked Mustafa. Well, no one comes to the Father, no one gets to God except through Jesus, said Mustafa. She said, "You're right. You need to trust Jesus, that he is the way for you to get to heaven, that it's not words that you say and repeating a prayer again and again. It's not going to the mosque on special days. It's not saying certain things. It's trusting that Jesus came and that he lived and that he died in your place and that he rose again and he's in heaven. And the only way that you can have a relationship with God is by trusting Jesus, that Jesus is God and that he loves you and he is the only way." Mustafa said, "I think I'm ready to believe that now." And the teacher said, "Would you like to tell God that you're believing in his son, Jesus, for your salvation?" And Mustafa said yes. And he started, just like he read in those verses, he started his prayer with "Our Father," and then he just got to talk to God. He didn't have to have memorized words. He just got to talk to him just like he was sitting there and just like the teacher Layla had been talking to God. When he finished, Mustafa had a big smile on his face because now he knew how to pray just like the teacher had. He could just talk to God like he was there. "Well, what am I going to tell all of my family?" Mustafa asked Layla, and she said, "You should not deny your new faith. You shouldn't say that this isn't what you believe because that's not true. You do believe Jesus is God, but you need to be very careful about who you tell because for these people, it's actually very dangerous for you to decide to be a Christian. Your family might not even want to talk to you anymore. Your friends won't want to talk to you. People in the markets might not want to sell food to you. All sorts of problems." But Layla said, "You need to spend a lot of time talking to God and you need to ask him who you can tell and who will listen to you and who will understand. But you know in your heart that you've made the decision to trust Jesus, but you will have to be careful from now for who you tell and how you tell other people about Jesus too. So you're going to have to come back next time to see who he tells and how his family responds. And did you know there's a lot of people around the world and kids who have a hard time making a decision to trust Jesus as their Savior because something like this might happen. Their family might not want to listen to them, all sorts of things. So you should be really thankful that you live in a place where you can trust Jesus and you can talk about Jesus and nothing bad happens to you.
Thank you. It's always exciting when somebody gets saved.
Yep, it is.
Okay. Well, today we are going to tell you about Paul and Jamie Schmidt, my sister and brother-in-law. They were on here over a year ago to tell us that they were going to Brazil, and then it could
our first
not
guest.
happen. And then this year, it happened, and they are there right now. If you're watching this while we release it, otherwise they may be back already. So I asked Jamie to tell us about their first couple weeks in Brazil. And they are there for 3 weeks.
Is that breakfast you really like?
Yes, it
Sorry.
is. That is tapioca, and it is so yummy, and I want some for breakfast tomorrow.
I don't know
But
how to make it.
yeah, and we don't have the ingredients to make it. I don't know how to make it either, actually. Jamie knows how. So there's Paul getting his first experience of tapioca, and I cannot tell what's inside. But I'm sure it's just really, really tasty. So they went down to Brazil 2 weeks ago, and right here at the beginning of June, around that time. And this is Paul's first time out of the U.S., and it's his second ever time flying. The first time he flew was with us to the Creation Museum. So he's never flown internationally, never been through an airport that has signs in a different language and where everyone speaks a different language. And Jamie didn't give me any details, but she said getting through the airport was interesting. She said she's really thankful that she knew some Portuguese. I don't know, maybe if she didn't, maybe they wouldn't have made it there. I have no idea, but
It is a little tricky.
yes, I remember my first time going down and I didn't know Portuguese. And the reason I was able to find my way to where I needed to get in that first airport was because I got onto an elevator and someone started talking to me. I think they thought I looked like an American, but they started talking in English and they helped me get to where I needed to go next. So I'm really thankful for that guy. The first day they were down there, well, actually, before we get to that, let me just show you. Here's a close-up picture of the
Did
tapioca.
you want that coffee too?
That's gross. They probably liked it, but too bad for them. And then they had this for breakfast.
Oh, you like that too.
Yes, papaya. The Leonards will have that for breakfast just about every morning, and when you put that with your tapioca, your meal is just that much better. And Paul got to have bananas outside of the U.S. for the first time, and those bananas are so good. Doesn't matter what color they are. Well, black, I'm not sure. But if they're yellow or brown in another country, they taste amazing.
Make really good banana bread too.
Well, yes. If you get them yellow or brown here in the U.S., I do not like them. But anyway, Paul got to have his first experience driving in another country. They are driving the Leonard's car right there, it looks like. And so I'm sure that was fun for him. I got to do that when I was down there, and that was a lot of fun. Here are the Rulies boys. The Rulies are missionaries in Brazil, just to the east of where the Leonards are. So the Leonards are in the state of Ceará, and then to the east of that there's a state called Paraíba. I have not been there, and they are missionaries there. And on the first day, Paul and Jamie went shopping with the Rulies, and let's see if I can find a picture. There we go. So look at all those fresh fruits. We have watermelons at the bottom. We have papaya in the middle. up on the top. I can't quite tell what those are from here, but there's a lot of good looking stuff. Here are coconuts.
Oh, yeah.
So tasty. And they also went with the Rullies and visited the church plant that the Rullies that they work with. Now, it's a church of about 25 people, but they cannot meet right now because of lockdowns. And so throughout the first week they were together, they visited people from the church at their homes. There were several people in the church who wanted to hear Paul and Jamie play their violin and guitar. In fact, she said some people have never even heard a violin, or seen one in person.
Oh, wow.
Which is really weird, because when I was down there with the Brazilians I was with, they all knew, some of them played. But this is a little different area, I guess. So, because they could not all meet at their church building for a service, the Rullies said, well, let's just have a meeting together in our house so that you guys can all come.
Oh, fun.
So they did that, and Paul got to preach. He preached from Philippians, and his topic was having the right perspective on different things in life. And so, like, the right perspective on suffering was one of the things he did, and the right perspective on various other things. Here's a picture again of the Rullies, and you can see Mr. Rulli is there on the right with his thumbs up. And they're eating and enjoying some great food. That looks like pizza, and it looks like they also have some Guaraná. That 2 liter of pop, actually. And
well, cashew juice, right?
that is
Or that's
Cajuina.
Oh, wrong one.
Yep. Guaraná is the one that you find all over the country, and it's the one that you would hear about most of the time coming from Brazil.
Got it.
Cajuina is the one from Ceará, and it's a regional one, and so I'm not sure, they might not have that here in Paraíba. And there is another picture with some more people that they got to visit from the church, and there you can see Mrs. Rulli down in the corner taking the picture. So here's some more pictures. I believe this is a pastor and his wife, one of the people down there. I think I know them. I think they were one of the couples that I got to visit while I was down there.
Oh, cool.
National pastors there, and must be in Paraíba as well with a church. And so yeah, they just visited several people during that first week. They got to go to a market, and I'm not sure if they bought this hammock, but at least they got a nice picture with it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they bought it, because that's a color that Jamie really likes. So they surveyed other churches also, not just the Rullies, but they got to go visit some others in Paraíba and see some of the various cities there. And they're just kind of looking around, seeing what the ministry is like there in Brazil, some of the needs of the people. And then on the weekend they returned back to Crato in Ceará to stay with the Leonards. And this week they visited Petrolina, and that is down south of Crato in the state of Pernambuco. And they spent some time with Pastor Tim Reiner, who is an American missionary, but also with some more Brazilian national pastors. They went fishing for piranha.
Oh.
And
Ah!
look at those teeth.
Yeah, don't stick your finger in there.
Those are so big.
For a little fish.
Yep. So that's something fun that they got to do. I think they caught like 5 of them or something. I'm sure when they're back and they get with us again, they can tell you more about that. This week, they are visiting the Leonards Church, and they are going to play music there, and Paul is going to preach. And so they're also just spending a lot of time seeing all these different churches, living daily life with the missionaries, seeing what it is like to go shopping with them, as I mentioned, and some of their just chores around the house, things that they do on a daily basis, but also seeing their weekly ministries. And I believe that they are going to visit Juazeiro and see one of the newer church plants in that city there. That's right next to Crato, where the Leonards live. I don't know who this is, but just someone else that they are visiting with. And yet another picture of the Ruleys and people from their church down there. So you can pray that they will be an encouragement and blessing to the missionaries and the pastors there in Brazil. There are American missionaries and Brazilian missionaries. Pray for Uncle Jim Leonard, and we call them Uncle and Aunt the Leonards because they're missionaries there, and all the BMM missionaries, that's how they refer to each other, his uncle and aunt. So pray for him as he's still recovering from COVID that he had a few weeks ago. Pray for the Ruley family and their church plant in Casadetas, and also for wisdom regarding what God would have for Paul and Jamie in ministry right now and also in the future. And so yeah, they are coming back at the end of this next week, and eventually we will have them on so that they can tell you more about their trip and what they did. They would be able to tell you better than we did, especially when I have pictures that I don't even know who the people are.
Yep.
So pray for them, and that God would just keep revealing to them what His will is for them in ministry while they are taking a look at these churches.
Yep. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the next part of our missionary story. We still have a little bit more left to go, and a little bit more about Korea, so make sure you come back next week to learn a little more.
Yep, we'll see you then. Bye.